Hello, Project Return members. This is Mr. James. Taking this opportunity to present to you some information about me that some of you may have missed or not have been able to attend when I showed this originally a few weeks ago when I first started and joined Project Return. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So a real quick background about myself. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am one of 4 boys. I am the oldest of my family's children. I started drawing at a young age, mostly cartoon characters for families upon request. A lot of Looney Tunes, Disney characters, Winnie the Pooh, just fun characters that children would like to draw. Later I'd go on to draw comic books, certain superheroes. A lot of friends growing up would request Spider-Man, Batman, Wolverine, Superman was amongst the most popular. Oh, and Ninja Turtles too. Materials I would often use early on in my art process would be just normal pencils, pens, markers that I had available, and some pastels on paper. I didn't start really painting until around 12 years old, and I got more serious into art in high school. Fast forwarding quite a few decades into the future, now married to my wife for quite a while now. We were married in 2003, been together since in high school. We have 4 children of our own, from a toddler to a couple in high school now. Our family is pretty big, 6 total plus 2 rescue dogs that we love dearly. We relocated to Florida from Pennsylvania back in 2015, first living in Miami. But we always love doing things together, being outside, so the beach days are nice, but we also like to travel, go hiking, and of course eating out. Pizza and ice cream is usually on the menu most of the time as a treat. And just a little bonus fact that I do collect comic books, and my favorite hero is Spider-Man. And just a little bit of background information on my education. I graduated back in December of 2020 from the University of South Florida with my Bachelor's of Fine Art. My focus was on studio art painting, which mainly just means I concentrated in acrylic, oil mediums on canvas or boards. You could be a studio art major with clay or drawing, but painting is more or less what is my calling at this particular time in my art career. But I have other interests in figure sculpture with clay and ceramics, personal interest in photography, and computer graphics as well. So here we're going to get into some of the fun stuff. This is one of my earlier pieces that I completed on my own, outside of any type of school or institution. It's a self-taught style. This particular piece was inspired by multiple works early on from Picasso's Blue Period paintings. I used images that were available to me through a calendar I purchased a long time ago. I painted this a long time ago, back in the early 2000s, and it kind of just sat there and remained unfinished for quite a few years, and then I completed it back in 2016. The pictures start off more or less a realistic collage of the figures that were in the original Picasso painting, but then as my not my ability, but how I saw the painting become its own entity, it kind of became more abstract over time, and you'll see that in a lot of my work going forward. And moving forward to trying out new ideas, this is a piece I did. I used a photograph of our dog Skee-Ball, printed it out black and white. He's all black, so he doesn't have really any dark or light colors on him, but the shine of his coat gave off shadows and different textures, so I just blocked out the shapes I saw in the photograph itself, and then made the decision on what colors those shapes would end up being. Restricted myself to 3 primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, and this is what came out, and I was really happy with it. I used watercolor for the very first time as far as in my adult life making a painting. It looks like it's more acrylic than watercolor. I was using acrylic a lot longer, so I went really heavy with these colors, but I'm still happy how it came out. It's it seems more light and airy, and it's not as solid as an acrylic would be, but I'm really happy, and this is just all about experimentation and having fun with a everyday photo. And this is a still life painting I did back in 2017 at the University of Miami. It was for a painting class towards my degree. It was study of the style of Jean-Baptiste Chardin, who is considered the master of still life. I set up this basic arrangement in my garage on a table with a brown cloth. This actually was a drapery, just some bananas, some obscure objects from the kitchen area, and the skull was a Halloween prop. I'm overall very satisfied, and it is one of my favorite still lifes to this day that I've completed. Now this painting was another one I had to do for class at the University of Miami. It is also completed in oil. It's on a very large canvas, about 24 by 36, so 2 feet by 3 feet. It's done in layers, which is an interesting technique where you paint the background elements first and then you work your way out to the very front, the larger objects. You can see some of the areas have some transparency where you can see through the leaves. You can see the snake and the tiger and the flamingos, and most of this stuff is all made up from my mind. A couple of the flamingo pictures were ones I'd taken photos of from the zoo and used them as elements in the painting, but everything else was kind of made up. This was studying the style of Henry Rousseau, who painted in a primitive manner, which is basically, it looks like more like illustrative and kind of childish, but it's still very visually striking, colorful, and it's actually very fun to paint. One of my final paintings that I completed at the University of Miami was in the study style of Edward Hopper. He was an American realist painter who was famous for painting nighthawks in 1942. I used oil on a large canvas 30 by 40 inches and only used a palette knife to create this image. The challenge for me was, since I wasn't using brushes and blending and brush strokes, I had to use the palette knife mix and with delicate movements keep my lines sharp and create like a vibrancy with the picture itself, and I think it's very successful. After leaving Miami and moving to Tampa, I enrolled at the University of South Florida to complete my degree, and this is one of the first paintings I produced out of the classes. It's a fun portrait painting I created from a photo of my wife, limited palette, primary colors, introducing some abstract shapes into the portrait. So these works that you're seeing on the screen now are from my Bachelor of Fine Arts thesis work. It's the final body of work I produced upon graduating in my last semester at University of South Florida in December of 2020. I painted all of these pieces in my studio on campus. I didn't have any direct inspiration when I created these pieces. I was really more focused on experimentation, having fun with the colors and movement within the painting. I had a lot of abstract paintings before that were more geometrical, but for some reason for my thesis I wanted to create a more have a sense of movement pretty much with the paintings themselves and lending the paint to give us texture. This particular piece is really fun to create. Every time I look at it, it feels like a vast array of layers of melting wax. It doesn't really remain stagnant. There's always a sense of something is going on in the painting, even though the objects aren't really anything that could be represented by something you may see in the real world per se, but gives a sense of something's going on and that's nothing standing still. And some of my work for the thesis paintings have just been combinations of elements from the previous paintings I completed for this series, which you can see by the shapes and colors, and some of the movement included in this work are similar from the previous two. This particular piece is a one-off from this series. It has no color at all, but it's more of an emphasis on the texture and using of the medium. The background is actually acrylic, and and the elements in the foreground, the more contrasting colors, are all oil paint. It's the largest work of the series. I did another smaller one since it was really fun to do that pairs with it very nicely, but it's a kind of a technique that I taught myself with the background and the elements on top that I'll probably be making much more of in the future. And just to wrap this up, I really appreciate everyone and your interest in my work, and I can't wait to explore more art ideas with everyone at Project Return. This is a sample of a small, really fun piece that I discovered on how to do when I was just kind of in a creative rut. It's very, very easy, very much fun, and we'll definitely be demoing it online and in class again. I know there was a few people that did something similar with me with a palette knife, but this has nothing to do with the palette knife. It's super messy and lots of fun. But either way, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for accepting me and allowing me to be part of your Project Return family. I feel like everyone there is like super wonderful, and we're gonna have some great creative times together, and I can't wait to see everyone again real soon. So stay tuned, and we'll have some great content being uploaded for you guys to enjoy. Take care.